Hey, welcome back to the Casting Cost cEDH podcast. I'm Chase, and today we're going to be doing a deck tech over Flubs the Fool. So, whether you've been following the channel for a little bit, or you're new to us, or things like that, you've probably noticed in some of our podcast episodes, and then one of our gameplays that's going to be coming out here soon, or maybe by the time that this video has already been released, I talk about Flubs a lot. It is just like Ken Bauman. This is a passion project. When I saw this card, I instantly fell in love with it. I was like, what can I do with this? I quickly went over to the Too Deep list, saw that, thought that was really cool, and started building this deck. Now, that is what I want to say the basis of this deck is for the most part, but I feel like I do a lot of variance compared to that list. And I might not. I might be over-exaggerating, but I thought it'd be fun to do a deck tech over my build for Flubs the Fool, and especially seeing as though, like, within the past couple weeks, I got this thing. And I wanted to show it off real quick before it gets on camera. That is a Flubs playmat by the one and only Gold Sabertooth, and I'm in love. So let's see what Flubs does. So we're in Timber colors with this, and it looks like for each color, so a green, a blue, and a red, we have a legendary creature, Frog Scout. That is a 0/5, because he got a big booty. And so you may play an additional land on each of your turns, and whenever you play a land or cast a spell, draw a card. If you have no cards in hand, otherwise discard a card. So this creature, this commander, he is just wanting to churn through the deck, go as quickly as he possibly can within Timber colors. Does not care what happens at the table. Heuristic Studies down, sure. Smothering Tides down, okay. Bowmaster's down, whatever. It doesn't matter. You are all gas, no ass, except for Flubs because he's a 0/5. And it's a deck that I just instantly fell in love with. So let's start with all the win cons that you can have in this deck. So as you can see, there's a lot of different things that I've already added into this list, and some of these are not necessarily traditional Flubs lines. So let's go over the main ones that we're looking at that we would typically see within Flubs. We have Squee here. So we're running Food Chain. We're infinitely casting Squee. We can slam down Flubs, continue to cast Squee for infinite creature mana, be able to just draw, discard, and go through our deck until we hit something that we actually need, and then we can cast our creatures, continue those kind of loops, so on, so on, so on. So that's really good. We also are running this Underworld Breach package between, obviously, Breach, the Lion's Eye Diamond, the Brain Freeze, and I typically include Thassa's Oracle in here just as a clean finisher. But there's an alternative way in this deck to actually ensure that you can kind of do a Breach line, and that's actually between 6 Lion's Eye Diamond or Lotus Petal, I think both can work, and Life from the Loam, where you're able to continuously dredge 3 and then, get the Life from the Loam back, be able to pitch your lands that you get off Life of the Loam to retrace the Lion's Eye Diamond with 6's ability, and being able to repeat that process until you mill through your deck until you either hit the Underworld Breach or Thassa's and you've generated your mana at that point. Some other combos within the deck, typically once you hit infinite creature mana or infinite mana in general, you can use the Walking Ballista and hit the table for infinite there. Eternal Witness and Snap plays with our Gaia's Cradle down here in order to be able to continuously recurse Snap and then be able to generate infinite green mana. And then depending on what we put in the deck, if we're running like the Utopia Sprawl or the Wild Growth or things like that, you can actually generate some of the other colors through that. And then even though I have Cloud of Fairies up here by itself, that's actually included with our Cloudstone Curio loops as well to generate infinite mana. You know, I haven't touched on the 0-drop creatures just yet, but being able to, you know, cast a Cloud of Fairies, bounce back a Rogue Rack, continue a loop and chain that way where we're untapping 2 of our lands, you know, especially Cradle, and then being able to go through our deck that way until we basically hit the pieces that we need. Now, some lines that for today I'm going to include, because I think that they've really proven to be strong within the actual cEDH scene, and they're not, even though they're not typical Flubs lines, I don't think they're too bad in this deck, and I'll kind of go through that as I continue. But the line that I'm actually including it for now is I'm going to try out the Oboro Breeze Caller in here. I think just having this way of being able to not only create that loop where you could phase out all your opponent's stuff and then potentially present like some kind of like instant speed win, but through generating all the infinite mana, it's also really helpful if for some reason you are needing to, you know, say you need to bounce a land, you know, it could even just not even be the Talon Gates down here. It could be something else that you need. You know, say if you need to like bounce something to untap your Gaia's Cradle, but you also need to just play a land in order to like reset like your flubs and keep going with it. I don't think that's awful to do in the deck. So I think that that's there and can be useful. Now, I actually did not include a creature in this that I need to include in this, but if you notice, I have Gut Shot and Lightning Bolt in here as well. And the creature I forgot about was Displacer Kitten. Reason why we can, you know, if we have these pieces in our graveyard, we're somehow able to have Displacer and Eternal Witness on board, or find a way to be able to recur them, whether that's through 6 or Underworld Breach or anything like that, we could actually start presenting this chain where we are looping that Gut Shot and the Lightning Bolt like how the Rogthras decks do. Now, obviously, we're not playing Thrasios, so we're not like getting as deep into the deck. But if we think about it, you know, if we get to a point in the game where we're not able to go on to the Flubs plan, but we are able to really lean heavily into what we have in the 99, that could present a win on its own. So I don't think that that is a bad loop, and we're going to try it out today. And if you think it's bad, tell me. I've actually never played it within my constructed build for Flubs, but I think it would be a good include to at least try. So that's that. I think that's pretty self-explained, or at least I hope I explained in enough detail on most of the combos that were going on with this. Now, there's another one in particular that I can think of that does really synergize well with the deck, and I'm not including it in this one. And that is the Shrieking Drake Earthcraft. While Earthcraft I know is really good and can be really good even on its own in a deck like this, I actually don't think I'm going to run that combo here. And that might sound like hypocrisy to other Flubs players and whatnot, but I've kind of, that's always been the line I feel like I've never really gone for as much. And I know it can be really clean, but I'm gonna opt out for it in this one. So, and I might include Earthcraft. We're going to see. It's just going to be completely dependent on what our lands are. Okay, so if you have kind of either seen my last deck tech that I did, or you watched our video based on my thought process on constructing decks, Flubs kind of goes against the grain on this one, because I only like to keep it like 2 or 3 win conditions. Flubs is packed full of them. And that's just because the way the deck tries to operate, you're just going. So whenever I play this deck and I sit down and I'm trying to play it, I don't really care about whether or not I'm putting a combo piece in the graveyard, like the Walking Ballista. If I just need to get a Flubs trigger, I'm just going to cast it for 0. And I'm just going to keep going until I can't. So, you know, that's why I think Flubs breaks a little bit of parity on what I typically do in my deck building. But with that being said, let's go to the next piece that I focus on, which is more of the value engines of Flubs. So I feel like on this part, I'm actually not going to spend a whole lot of time on this, because you know, our win cons are the value stuff, we have our value piece in the command zone, but there are a couple of really prominent value engines that I think are really important to point out in this deck, because I think regardless of how you build flubs, you need to include these. And that is Bergi, God of the Storytelling, Eruth, Tormented Prophet, and we have Song of Creation down here. And the reason why I say that, you know, Bergi, whether you're playing the front side of her or you're playing the back side of her, being able to generate one of the two like really important colors in the deck, because it's almost like a Gruul deck splash blue at times is what it feels like, even though right now there's a little bit more focus on blue. But whether you cast Bergi and you're able to, you know, go through loops where you can generate that extra red mana, you build up enough mana where you cast the backside and you start pitching some extra cards in order to just exiling things and keep your Flubs chains going, is really strong. The Eruth, now, this is a piece that I feel like every single time I've played it, people have looked at my board and gone, we need to stop this right away. Like, at first sight, it doesn't seem like it is the most powerful card in the deck, but it really gets away with the game quickly. So on Eruth, we have a 3-drop in for colorless, blue, and a red, 2/4, legendary human wizard, that if you would draw a card, exile the top 2 cards of your library instead. You may play those cards this turn. So what's really good about that is the fact that you can begin to not worry about whatever loops you're trying to do, because you're not trying to fill your hand. You know, you are trying to simply go through and do all these loops and keep going. So like, even if you end up milling yourself out and Eruth is out and you're able to keep it sticking on the board, you can continue whatever loops you need to. Like, say, even if for some reason you can't do Thosses, but you're able to access the Brain Freeze and you can kind of continue a loop and you just infinite Storm Count, mill everyone else out past priority. Like, as long as Eruth is out and if you have Flubs out, you're not going to draw a card, so you won't lose right away. And that's why people look at that as a really important piece. And I forgot to include Sensei's Top. Sensei's Top is really strong in this deck. Just having the ability to either manipulate the top of your deck so you can keep going with it, being able to replace your top card, and being able to put Sensei's Top on top, being able to, you know, do what you need to in order to keep going with that. You know, again, kind of pairs well with the backside of Bergi or the Eruth or things like that, because it's easy to generate some excess mana at times. And for one, it's not that hard to cast. And then there's Song of Creation. So this is, again, it's kind of like Eruth, where people look at this card, it touches the board, and they go, oh, fuck. Just because it is another way of playing additional land, you're able to draw more cards. Even if Flubs isn't on the field, it's almost like Song of Creation is the backup commander of the deck, and it just goes nuts. But and it has that upside for Flubs himself, where at the beginning of your end step, you discard your hand, which is, again, it's really strong. Having the ability to do that in Flubs and making sure that you're either on 0 or you're wanting to make sure you're including pieces where you can actually stay on like an odd number for your hand, so that way you can continue flubbing. But it's just really, really good. So now that we've kind of looked at these value engines, let's look at a couple of other enchantments that are really good in flubs. Okay, so some of these other enchantments that I have decided to include... Oh, and I forgot one anyway, so let me add exploration in there. All right, cool. So we are trying our best to ensure we are getting a bunch of extra mana in this. And the one I forgot, let's start with that. So exploration, so for just 1 green, play an additional land each turn, great. If we have it, Flub, Song of Creation, we're dropping 3 extra lands for the turn, and we're just jamming, okay? Now, Utopia Sprawl and Wild Growth kind of act as the same place, where Wild Growth, obviously, like you could play it on any land, and you just make an extra green. Utopia Sprawl, you choose a color, and it has to be a forest. But again, these are pieces that kind of go with either our Cloud Fairy loops or some of our, like the Eternal Witness Snap stuff, where we could start generating the other colors that we need. Mana Bond, actually, this is a card that I really didn't even know that much about, and I'll be honest about that. And not until the Too Deep Blight Club tournament that took place for the only Flubs, and I saw this card and I was like, yep, there's a reason why they have this in the deck. So I mean, if in Flubs you're stuck on a hand where you have a bunch of lands and you are just like, I can cast them, but I can't really do anything else this turn, or I have, making, again, like I just said a little bit ago, ensuring that you can hit 0 in your hand or an odd count. You play all your lands, you pitch the rest of your cards in your hand, you don't care about them, and that sets us up. Now, I don't know how many lists are on Survival of the Fittest. I like Survival in this build just because sometimes you're going to run into spots where you need certain creatures. I have been able to at times interact with preventing Thassa's demonic consultation lines because I had Survival out, where I could pitch a kobold to tutor for an endurance and then be able to cast a endurance with the mana that I had and then be able to save the game that way. Being able to ensure you're getting like pieces like the Bergie, or ensuring that you're getting the Eruth or Ewit or Eternal Witness or Cloud of Fairy, whatever you need in that moment. You might be stuck on a loop where you can have a creature in your hand with not enough mana to cast it, but if you have green and you just get one of your 0-drop creatures out of the deck, there you go. You can continue one of your Flubs loops. So I think it's really good. Now, the only other, and I mentioned, again, I mentioned this earlier, Earthcraft is really strong, and I'm not denying the how strong that card is. I don't know. I think because I'm not playing the Shrieking Drake, spoilers, because I'm not playing the Shrieking Drake, I don't know if I include Earthcraft here, and I don't even know if I really want to run basics, but for the time being, let's go on ahead and include it in here just to see where we're at by the end of this, and if it ends up being a card that I cut, that's probably one that I do. And again, some people will be out there and they might think that's blasphemy, but that's just where I'm at, where I've played the deck, or at least my version of the deck. Okay, so this is where my deck building goes a little bit out the window on this one, because with Flubs, again, it kind of breaks parity on how I construct a deck or what I'm trying to focus on. Yes, I have my core of what I'm going for in the main game plan, but I can't be looking at, there are certain things about this deck that is just, it's wild. So the next part of this that I'm actually going to prioritize is the 0-drops and some of our free interactive pieces. Now, I don't play a full Cheerios package whenever I do this, so just bear with me on it. Okay, so if we're taking a look at this, let's start with our creatures. I'm including the kobolds. There should be 4 of them. Yeah, including Roger there at the bottom. I'm including those: Memnite, Shield Sphere, Ornithopter, Phyrexian Walker, and we already talked about the Walking Ballista earlier as far as the combo piece goes. Now, I don't try to, again, run as many 0-drops as I can. I just try to run enough that will like either give me enough value or can help kind of protect me as I'm trying to set up more of my lines, or kind of keep me in the game so that way people aren't swinging at me as much. I'm not going into like the shifting walls or some of the others that have been played here recently, and I probably should. It's just, this is my take on how I've played the deck. So those are the 0-drop creatures that I play in this. Now let's go to the artifacts. Now, obviously we have our ramp artifacts like the Crow Mox, the Mox Amber, the Mox Diamonds, Paradise Mound, so on, so on, so on. I think the other key ones that are important, Zern Orb can be hit or miss, if we need to bounce back and recover some of our life, or you know, maybe we can kind of do some, not like a Lumra extent, some kind of loop with it, but it's another 0-drop. It can get us life if we need to. That's not bad, especially if we're having to be able to like go through our loops in a Bowmaster, or I've been in instances with it where a Shieldred's on board, and maybe we need to sacrifice some of our life total or some of our lands in order to ensure that we're staying in a healthy spot. Plus, it goes well with the 6 line, where maybe if you don't have that many lands you have, or you need to get specific ones back after you've sacrificed them to the Zuran Orb, you can do the Life from Loam, get those back. Tormod's Crypt, good piece of tech. Just something to go against the meta, especially like the Grixis and all the different types of breach decks, or anything trying to, you know, or like even like things like Blood Pod or anything like that that's trying to use the graveyard. Tormod's Crypt is great. We're playing both of the baubles in this, as far as the Mishras and the Urzas. Jeweled Amulet is one that you can just be able to dump excess mana into, and ensure that on your next turn you have, you know, that mana that you can use whatever you need it for. You know, that's good, you know, because there are times where you can be a little bit short, even though we're producing a lot of mana, and it's a 0-drop. We keep on flubbing. Now, I will probably butcher the name of this, but I always, you know, Gushta's Scepter is such a strong card in this deck. Being able to tap it, save some of your pieces that you need for later, being able to ensure that you're just tucking a card underneath it to make sure that you can keep on flubbing, like, it's so damn good. I cannot underestimate how good this card is, and a lot of people just look at it and it's just like, why do you even play that? But yeah, the ability to just be able to tuck a card underneath it and then be able to get it just about any time you need it. Yeah, solid card. Yeah, that's pretty much it on our 0-drops. Okay, so this is probably another area where I'm about to make a slight pivot. So typically, like, lands might be the last thing I go for, because I want to make sure that I'm getting my ramp and my instants and sorceries, but Flubs just, it doesn't care on most of that, and there's going to be probably some pet cards here at the end of this anyway that I'd like to talk about a little bit more. So let's go ahead and go into our lands. This is where I'm a little iffy on some of this. Typically, I probably wouldn't run all 3, like one of each of the basics. I would prefer more fetches, but I kind of want to see what we're doing this by the end of how we have this constructed. You know, we got 10 fetchable targets with 6 fetches, which is okay. We have 1, 2, 3, 4 plus the gemstone, which is kind of a half ways of producing, you know, whatever color we need. The only card Odawara is one I forgot, and that's 28 lands. I don't really feel comfortable with that. So this might be an area that we come back to closer to the end just to see what we want to cut out. But I do want to highlight like the key lands. Obviously, you know, if we're going to try out the Rogthras line, we need the Talon Gates and we need that Guy's Cradle. So those are auto includes in this. Then we have our pretty standard stuff with the Ancient Tomb, the Gemstone Caverns, things like that. The only other 2 pieces I feel like are kind of more of a tech piece. Shifting Woodlands is an all-star in this deck. Just being able, like, even if I have Breach in the graveyard and then I have a bunch of mana, I can, you know, being able to activate this and then being able to just kind of go that way, potentially even providing some kind of like instant speed win potentially. Like, it's really, really good. Yeah, I have nothing more to say on that one. And then same thing kind of with Emergent Zone. Like, in these two, sometimes play pattern wise get paired together, where like if Emergent Zone is in the graveyard, you turn you can turn Shifting Woodlands into Emergent Zone and then crack it. So that, I think that one's kind of interesting. But yeah, I don't really feel comfortable with the 28 land counts. I like some of our special lands that we have in here. We might end up cutting one of the mountains, or not the mountains, one of the basics. But let me scroll down here. Now this is where it's kind of interesting to me. I think it's going to change. Now typically whenever I've played this deck, and I mentioned it earlier, I feel like this is more of a Gruul Shell Splash Blue, but maybe because we're on the Displacer and we're going a little bit, and we're trying to do the Boreal Breeze Caller stuff, maybe we're a little bit heavier on blue. So we'll see, and that's part of the reason why I included this card as well, if I can find it, the Commercial District, just because I've always felt like the red and green is what you truly want to hit in this deck. Now, again, we'll take a look at it by the end. But, you know, if you kind of get stopped on a turn and you have to fetch and like you surveil and you are able to kind of filter some things out, including at least one of these surveil lands is not bad. So that's why I have it in here. Okay, now let's include some of the additional ramp that we excluded a little bit ago. Pretty standard in our artifacts. We have the Soul Ring, the Springleaf Drum, wherever the Mana Vault, there it is, the Mana Vault. We're doing the Arcane Signet, we're doing the Felwar Stone. I'm opting out of not doing the Talismans just because we're already running quite a few artifacts as is. So I opted out of doing that. Now let's look at some of our creatures. And so this, you know, again, we're not running like a full package of mana dorks here, but we got the birds. We have Delighted Halfling just because Eruth 6, being able to do Burgy, uncounterable flubs, you know, whatever you need to there can be really, really good. Just as it's simple dork. We're running the Tinderwall and we're running a Wild Cantor. Again, just to be able to make sure that we're hitting our colors, whether that's, you know, we need the double red or like being able to make 1 mana of any color and it feels our breach stuff. And I'm actually going to play Enduring Vitality in here too, just because by the end of this, we're going to be playing quite a few creatures. So I like to ensure that we get additional usage out of our creatures in order to continue casting spells. I think Enduring Vitality is just, it's really good. Any deck that's running green and trying to make a bunch of mana, it's good. Now, I'm not running Kennen in this, and I think that that's okay. Again, if you were to run Kennen in here, or if you choose to run Kennen in your build of it, that's fine. I just don't think that, you know, obviously we're not going to really be able to take advantage of the flip ability on it. Yes, we can make a lot of mana, but we already have a bunch of ways of doing that. So that's why I've always kind of opted out of selecting Kennen from the deck. Okay, so let's take a look at some of our tutors now that are really good, whether it is we're trying to get some of the creatures out or whatever we need to. Okay, so in this, and there might be some changes because we're getting a little close. We're at 94, so probably what we're going to do, we will go over the 100, and then once we've passed that point, we'll start making some cuts from there together. So let's see what we've included in our tutor package here. So first and foremost, Finale, you know, we have a bunch of creatures. It can technically be used as a finisher if we need to, just swing out and whatnot after making a bunch of mana. But even sometimes just paying 0 into it just to ensure that we're flubsing and, you know, keep on going, that's okay. Same thing with the Nature's Rhythm here, being able to use that in the same spot where if you have 2 extra green and you just need to get a creature on board, or you need to continue your loops with flubs, pay 2 green, bam, you get a 0 drop, you keep going. Now, the good thing about this is it actually has that harmonize ability where you could cast it again from the graveyard. Once it goes to the graveyard, maybe that's whenever you can, you know, if you're ready to kind of go off and you can do the harmonize, get your Displacer kitten out, be able to do Ewit stuff then and there, like that's cool. And then Eldritch Evolution, you know, really good, sneaky tutor. We're playing a lot of 0 drops that can be fodder for something like this. So like even being able to go up and hit like the Cloud of Fairies, being able to hit, you know, our Thassa's Oracle if we, you know, for some reason we're able to go off or something like that. The Boreal Breeze Caller if we're able to like tutor for it and then go off on that line. You know, it's just, those are a lot of really good tutors. And we, you know, again, we have all these different 0 drop creatures to ensure that we are not going to like, you know, remove a really important piece from our own board state, or even like some of the 1 drops here. Like once we're done with some of these dorks, yeah, bye-bye. We get that Ewit, we get the Enduring Vitality, we get whatever we need. So those are good. Gamble. Now this one, you know, is probably one I should have included and I even forgot to include it in my last deck tech. And I thought about that afterwards for Terra. But Gamble combined with Breach, you know what it does. You know, even though it's the red Entomb, like it's good. So we include it here. Now, as far as our instances, crop rotation is an all-star tutor. It's proven its worth in like every deck that it's being played in right now. So that's an auto include, I feel like, and nothing we're cutting. Worldly tutor, again, if we need either, say we've been able to, say we're running low on mana and we need to sure we for some reason keep going, we get a 0-drop creature to the top, we get a free shuffle or a shuffle of the deck for a green. Pretty good, no complaints there. Same thing with this Mystical Tutor. Now, again, and I've stated this before, Mystical Tutor seems to be the tutor I go to as like one of my first cuts. So probably not surviving this, but we'll see. Okay, so I think that is really kind of it on the tutor portion of things. Now, this is where things start to get dicey, because now I'm going to start including the cards that I like to run in Flubs, as well as the creatures, the other instances, sorceries, and I'm just going to include that all at once, so that way I can kind of get my rundown on things and see what you all think. Okay, so like I said, this is going to get a little bit weird, I feel like. So let's start with our creatures. So a couple of cards that I have found to be really big powerhouses in the deck whenever I've played. Allosaurus Shepherd, Vexing Shusher. Having the ability to have your green spells not be countered, especially like if we're looking at some of these tutors down here, we're looking at Flubs, we're looking at Song of Creation. This thing, I have won games on the backbone of this 1-drop 1/1. Yes, it dies to Bowmaster, and you know, it whatever, you know, that doesn't matter. If you can stick this early, then it's good. Vexing Shusher, same thing. The fact that it can't be countered, it's not going to die to the Bowmaster right away. The fact that you can activate its ability and be able to save the game by making certain counter spells uncounterable, like if your opponents are casting things and you need to ensure that you're kind of interacting there, I think Vexing Shusher is really, really strong deck, and again, it protects yourself as well. Now, a couple creatures I forgot. We're going to run both Spirit Guides. And that's just trying to ensure that we are casting Flubs as soon as possible. That's it. That's all they're there for. There have been times where I've had to cast them in order to continue my loop, and it feels really bad, but we got to make sure we're getting that Flubs down really, really early. So next card that kind of is really interesting to me, the Reality Chip. So this card, I'm not gonna say there's like any kind of love-hate relationship with it. I feel like it's really strong in this deck, and is something that does not see a lot of play in it. But basically, like, this card plus Flubs allows you to keep going. You can kind of almost even start doing Bolus's Citadel type lines between it, Sensei's Top, and Bergie. Like, it's really strong, and having that ability to like just continue going through your deck, like even if you're being able to do things from the top, and you are able to pitch cards from your hand if you need to get that countdown. If you are hitting extra lands, but then your top is a spell you can cast it, pitch that land, keep going from the top. It's proven to be a really good card. And then Valley Floodcaller, I mean, what else can you really say? It's proven to be a staple in the format. It's really strong. The number of 0-drops we're actually running in this is big enough to make sure that we are getting there with this card. It's, you know, I have no complaints on it whatsoever. So yeah, plus we can make a really big bird if we had to. So that's why I've included that in here. Now, there is another card that I have been trying out, and I'm going to go ahead and include it here. We'll probably end up cutting it, but I have actually been trying to include Azusa somewhere in this. And that is just simply a creature that can be slammed down and we are able to play a bunch of lands, you know, and that's it, you know. So it has its ups, it has its downs, but I think with some of these cards, and especially that one giving you the ability to play 2 additional lands for the turn, it really helps to ensure that you are able to keep going in the deck, or even if you can't cast flubs, you kind of can use Azusa to continue to hit your land drops and just over flood the board, basically, is what we're going for on that one. So yeah, Azusa is a really strong card. Might end up cutting it. I haven't play tested enough, but we'll see. All right, let's move down to these sorceries. So this is one I'm actually trying out a little bit more now. I haven't been on it for a while. I'm going to include it in this because Ken Bauman runs it in his, so that there's no other explanation for that. Same thing with Strike It Rich. That's one that I haven't necessarily been on, but I see the purposes why. Like for a red, you can make a treasure, so that way you have mana of any color that you need later on. You can flash it back, so that way you can kind of continue your Flubs loops. It's really good. Now this is the one that's more of a pet card to me. Summer Bloom. So play up to 3 additional lands this turn for 2. It's not bad. I've had turns where by the, you know, on turn 3, I had all these different effects and I cast it. I think, honestly, I had 10 plus lands on turn 3. But I've also had instances where I never drew another land and I didn't have enough mana to cast anything else, so it just kind of whiffed. So it is just a really big kind of hit or miss card, but I miss playing Primetime and Modern back whenever this card was legal. I was like, this card seems really good still and fits into the shell of this deck. Let's just jam it. Again, it's been hit or miss. But just so that way you all are aware that it's a card that it exists. I'm tripping and flubbing over my words right now. So yeah, if you decide to run this in your own Flubs build, that's a card. A tutor I forgot to mention earlier, Court of Calling. Really good in the deck, really strong, highly suggest it. Don't know why I forgot about it. But let's look at our instances now. Now, I run a little bit more interaction, I think, than other Flubs players, where they are more so focused on just their own game plan. Sometimes you got to ensure that you can either save the game, so you have to be able to interact. I run both Pongify and Rapid Hybridization usually, and again, I typically don't run the Lightning Bolt Gut Shot build, but we're going to try it for this one. We're going to try it out in future Flubs videos just to see how it works, so fuck it, why not? But I like having this removal. Now, I might just be on the Pongify for now, but I think both are really solid, just because you are going to have those moments where either a Draenith is on board, or an opposition agent, an Orcish Bowmaster, Sheoldred sometimes. Like, there's going to be stuff that stops you, and you got to be able to remove it. Worst case scenario, you turn one of your 0-drop creatures into either a 3/3 ape or a 3/3 frog lizard for 1 blue. That's not bad. You know, you get a beefier creature out of it for a 1 blue, and you continue your flub chain and you keep going. Or if you even have to remove your own flubs or whatever. Same kind of pieces with Chain of Vapor and Into the Flood Maw. Chain of Vapor is mostly there, again, kind of as a way of either protecting your own stuff, you know, removing certain pieces so that way you can kind of continue on with your own game plan. So on, so on, so on. Now, Chain of Vapor obviously has its own drawbacks, because you have to really be picky on the casting. Like, if you're, you know, low on mana, but you're trying to breach for some reason, and this is the only thing that you have in your graveyard that can be as a removal to, you know, interact with what you need to, or bounce something, well, guess what? They just continue to the loop and they bounce your own breach. So that one I haven't been as keen on here recently, but Into the Flood Maw for sure. Plus, we're playing a frog. It's got a frog on it. Might as well play it. Auto include there. Now in our artifacts, this is one that I think is really interesting. It is fun. It helps whenever we're at a really competitive table. Glasses of Urza. And this, if anything, is more of a political piece, where I am going, hey, I just fed the Rhystic player like too much, and I know that I did. But going into their turn, let's let them draw that card. I'm going to activate Glasses of Urza. I'm gonna basically see what all they have. And, you know, that can be like a thing of I can either choose to reveal that information to the table, I can choose to reveal the important parts of that information to the table, I could completely bluff with it if I wanted to, where I'm lying to the table and saying, yes, they have these pieces, so you gotta be prepared, or I could just be as nonchalant about it as I want to be. Again, I think that is more of like a politics type move, piece of tech in this deck for a deck that doesn't have interaction. So that is kind of the key of this deck. Like, you have some interactive pieces, but as a player, and this is something that I don't do a lot whenever we're doing gameplay, because I gotta go back and I gotta edit it all, and I don't want to hear myself talk as much as I do even right now. But this provides an opportunity to use your voice as the most important key piece in the game. Politicking is such a vital part of cEDH. You have to do it, and or else the games can get, you know, someone can run away with the game if politics are not involved. But this is a piece that ensures that you can make sound decisions, even if you are having to go into the Flubs plan and feed people. So yeah, I like it. I think it's I'm not going to say it's an auto-include, but it's definitely a piece that I was happy of including in the deck. So looking at this now, we are at 110 cards. So we got to cut some cards. So we're going to start from the bottom up. Let's start with our lands first. I already said that I was kind of already not happy about running the 28 lands. I'd like to get it down to 26. Now let's kind of look and see what our spread is here. So it looks like with the way it is currently constructed, we mostly have green and blue with a decent spread between those. So I need to make sure that I'm hitting the blue source more so than anything else. So what we're gonna do, we're gonna keep that island in there. We are actually going to cut, and maybe some of that's the opposite. Like some Kennen players that I've watched or listened to or taken advice from have said, like, when you're prioritizing your fetches, you want to make sure you have the blue fetches over anything else, just because that's the weakest color in the deck. But I'm kind of but that is a two-color deck, and I'm kind of in the opposite mindset here, where I feel like red, whenever I need it, especially with playing pieces like Bergie, it's really accessible. So I'm gonna remove a mountain. And I know that I said I liked having the Surveil land earlier, but I'm actually gonna cut it for now. After seeing what that looked like as far as the spread between the three colors, you know, I would rather run a hedge maze, but if I'm going to have to cut a land, I might as well cut that because it comes into play tap, and we're trying out different things by trying to prioritize this Talongates now. So we got 2 cuts down. We need to cut 8 more cards. Let's look at our enchantments. Okay, so this might seem a little odd. I am actually going to cut this. I'm actually going to cut the wild growth, I think. I don't know. That one's difficult. I think those are difficult. I'm going to cut a wild growth. I think that being able to be more selective with the color that we pick is really important there. Now, I've already talked about whether or not I'm going to keep this Earthcraft. We're still running 2 basics between a forest and an island, which now has proven to be the two more prominent colors of the deck. For now, let's keep the Earthcraft in, just because I think that it has kind of a place where if again, we need green sources, we're running 31 bodies, we can untap them at, you know, or we can tap them down at instant speed to untap our basics if we need to. So that is fine. Let's look at our artifacts. Now, if I'm gonna be real on this, I think the one, because I do really like the Glasses of Urza. I haven't tested it out enough, but the games where I've had, it's proven to be really beneficial. I think I honestly cut the Zurin orb here for now. Let's go ahead and remove it. I'm not even gonna put it in considering. Yeah, it's a 0-drop, it keeps us going, but I really want whatever we put in here to be really intentional. So, you know, the Tormod's Crypt can interrupt graveyard stuff. Paradise Mantle, we have an extra mana lying around. We can equip it to one of our dorks if we need to. Now, Cryptolithrite would be good too. Did I just think of something different? We're going to try that out. We're going to try Cryptolithrite out. And I may not think about this. I think I saw it in Ken's list that he ran at that event. So I'm not original whatsoever. But I think that because I'm doing this, I think that honestly kind of edges out the Earthcraft for me because we're not doing the Shrieking Drake line. We will put it in considering though. I kind of like that a lot more. Yeah, I think that's solid. I think that's good. We got 6 more cards that we got cut. Okay, so so here's what I'm thinking whenever I'm looking at these instances. I can't cut that because that's a combo piece. I can't cut the Gut Shot or the Lightning Bolt because those are combo pieces. Same thing with Brain Freeze. Crop Rot technically is. Noxious Revival is just good. I'm going to cut the Rapid Hybridization so I can give others a monkey instead. And just because I run a foil version of the Pongify. So that's my only reasonable explanation for that. I'm going to cut that, and I'm actually going to cut the Chain of Vapor. We'll move that to considering, but I don't think we want to go too deep into interaction. Actually having the Gut Shot and the Lightning Bolt here make it to where we can interact a lot more between either things like Bowmaster, Draenith, Opposition Agent, anything like that. So that's not bad. Or if someone takes their life total down, like they're ad nauseing, and we have a bolt, and we can just fuck you, and we get them. So that's good. We're keeping those in, and sometimes we're going to have that Mystical Tutor in order to dig for some of these interaction pieces, or even that Snap or something like that. So that is good there. Let's look at these sorceries. We got 4 cards we got to drop. I'm hesitant on the wheel. I think it can be good in the deck, and the reason why I'm hesitant is simply because you don't want a whole lot of cards in your hand, and that's what I'm going for. I don't run a lot. If you've noticed, I don't run a lot of the pieces that the 2 deep list runs, where like they can pay a blue and it's like an X spell, and you discard X amount of cards and draw that many or whatever. Like, I'm not doing those effects. And even same thing, I'm not including like a Noose Constrictor. I'm not including the things that are the discard outlets like that. So that makes Wheel of Fortune really iffy in my build. But sometimes you kind of need it. Sometimes when you're playing flubs, like, you either get locked out of your commander, you're going to have to push into the mid-range. Sometimes you need to get back in the game somehow. And if we're not running pieces like Ristic, Fish, the One Ring, things like that, I don't think having access to one wheel is bad in order to ensure that we can keep going with our game plan. Plus, if anything, it could be a really early disruptive piece. And so that, I think we keep. I'm honestly going to cut the Summer Bloom here. I'm going to move it to considering. And it's for the exact reason that I said earlier. I've had really good hits off of it. I've had really bad hits off of it. So as fun of a card as it is, and if someone out there can really make this work, maybe even upping the land counts more and focusing more on it, Flubs being like a lands deck, go for it. But I think in the build I'm doing for today, we're cutting it. And I like everything else that we have here. And even with Strike It Rich and Wheel not being cards that I have typically ran, I think they're good. I think that they deserve spots in the deck. So here is going to be the hard part, I think, for me. And we might actually even have to go back and cut other things, because I think I've made a valid case in point for most of these cards in the creature spot. So this one's a tough one. Now, my go-to honest reaction pick would probably be the Arboreal Breeze Caller, but again, we are trying to, do that line so that way, even if we are going into our main phase and we know we can win and we have this line on board and we just generate infinite mana and then we start casting a bunch of shit, not caring what happens, it's hard to argue that that's a bad thing. And plus, it kind of protects us from the Bowmasters or anything else that's going to shut us down if we are trying to do that Talongates line. So I think Arboreal stays. I think the Azusa gets cut. I like the idea of Azusa, but I have not tested it enough to really see the worth in it. So that one is on the chopping block for today on that. Now, I feel like a lot of people looking at this, if you've made it to this point in the video, are probably thinking my other pet cards between the Reality Chip, Vexing, Valley, and Allosaurus. But I honestly, in the way that I've had the deck constructed, and this is like, even though I can turbo out, this version of Flubs really can grind into the mid to late game, they're probably still thinking like, why the fuck is he including these pieces? You know, Valley being out to if I get willed or a windfall or whatever, and now I have this hand. Well, guess what? Valley can help me, you know, as I'm going back into my turn, be able to cast a bunch of stuff and lower my hand count, and then on my turn be able to continue flubsing. So hard to argue it. Reality Chip, again, Bergie, Sensei's Top, Reality Chip, essentially just that's drawing out the entire deck. So has been really, really solid for me. Allosaurus Shepherd, again, slamming it early down and then getting like an uncounterable Song of Creation or anything like that, also has been just an all-star in the deck. So I have no complaints on this. I still have 2 cuts I have to make. So let's go further down and let's see what we can do here. This is gonna be tough, guys. This is tough. I don't know what to cut here. I probably shouldn't, but we're probably gonna cut this Utopia Sprawl. We'll move it back to considering, even though it pairs super well with Cloud of Fairies, you know, but sometimes it's only really good in your opening hand, and you got to make sure that you're continuing to push. I actually like this pick of Cryptolith over anything else. I think having this enchantment package is fine. We got one more cut we got to make. So what do we do? I think for the sake of what we're trying to do, because I, technically speaking, have a couple of more interaction points that I typically do, I think I'm actually going to cut the Pongify. So yeah, we're gonna move that down to considering. I really like Pongify, but I think if we are going to try this different loop, I think it just goes. All right, so it looks like we have finished on Flubs. We are running 29 creatures with both Enduring Vitality and Cryptolith in order being able to use our creatures to tap for additional mana so we can keep on flubbing when we need to. We're running 7 sorceries. Most of them are tutors. We got 4 tutors, a combo piece, a wheel, which can get us back into the game. Striker Rich being able to keep us going as well if we need to flash it back. We're running 10 sorceries, again, some mostly tutors, but a couple of combo pieces and some spot removal, you know, when need be, so that's pretty good. We're running 20 artifacts, which I don't think is very high, honestly, for a Flubs deck, because if most people go like I think it's like a 52 Cheerios list, you're running significantly more than that. But I'm really trying to narrow it down to what I feel like are the best ones in this. We got 7 enchantments, even though we're not on like the Wild Growth or the Utopia Sprawl right now. I think this is still really solid, being able to obviously breach, tutor for creatures that we might need then and there. And that reminds me, I forgot a creature. So now we're going to have to make a cut. I'll talk about that in a second. Song of Creation, great piece. You know, backup commander of the deck. Mana Bond, Food Chain, Exploration, Cryptolith, we just talked about it. Before I go back to the lands, I got to go back to the creatures because we forgot Endurance. It's super important in this deck. Not really, but does present really interesting loops and opportunities. I've actually been able to, without breach, be able to loop Ewit, Snap, Endurance, and Brain Freeze, and be able to somehow like mill out the table again as a piece that kind of saves us when we need it to. Just really good. And I know I'm also not running Darcy in this, but we can forego that for now. Now we're back in that predicament. What do we cut? Honestly, I'd rather cut a land. So if we cut a land, what land do we cut? And that is, I think, where we're at. And we run 25 lands and we don't cut any of the other important pieces that we've discussed. Now, obviously, I can cut Glasses of Urza. It's not a must-have of the deck. I just want to run it in my build for it. If we're not on Earthcraft, then I think we cut a basic, and I think that we actually cut, let me double check and make sure. See, I almost said we're going to cut the forest and keep the island because the island is the most important one, but look at our count now. The red and green did prevail in the end, so we actually need to make sure that we're hitting our red now. So we are going to cut probably this forest, remove that. And now I could keep the island in. I could. Let me make sure. But it's at a decent spot as far as what it can hit. So we are going to cut this island, remove that. We are going to put a mountain in just because we want to ensure that we are, even though red is not as prominent as green in the deck, we need to ensure we're hitting it. Let's see how things changed. Okay, boom. See, barely even dropped our blue, boosted our red a little bit, and practically did nothing to our green. So I think that's good. Yeah, and we're running 25 lands. Now, obviously, if we wanted to, we could play 24. And if we played 24, we could include something else. But I think for now, 25 is a good spot for flubs. You don't want to go super, super heavy on lands, but you still need enough in order to ensure you're getting there. I like this enchantment package that we have going on here. I like the artifacts. I like the spicy tech with the glasses. A few pieces of removal. Doing these loops with the Boro and the Displacer and the Eternal Witness. You know, and that might not even be a thing that works out for flubs. You know, it might just be a Rogthras combo just because you could dump it into Thrasios and go. Might even make an argument for why aren't we just running Thrasios in the 99. But I think it's strong enough here that it helps push the game plan and kind of help reset things at times when need be. So, I mean, other than that, that is my take on flubs. This is we just sat down, built this together, and I hope that in doing these deck techs, I'm providing enough information for you all, so that way if maybe Flubs is a deck that you like. If you liked my last video with Terra, you know, Blake and I have kind of talked about doing a podcast episode on like potentially going through and retooling some of our decks we've been playing recently, because right now I feel like my main Sisay has been in a weird spot for months, so maybe sitting down and doing some of that with he and I together. But if anything, I just hope that you enjoyed this. I hope that it kind of piqued some interest in one of my favorite and most fun commanders to play currently. And if anything, let's just see what happens from this. Maybe I'm not going to say that, you know, this is going to be the definitive flubs list, but this is one that, like, I did make it a goal that by the end of the year, I'd like to take flubs to like an actual tournament, or at least for a goal for our channel, I want to take a good, decent build of flubs to an actual tournament and see how I do with it. So this could be my tournament build for flubs. So if you like this deck, let me know. The Moxfield link is going to be down in the description. And if there's anything you felt like I left out, or you want to, you know, pass judgment on me because I didn't do the Shrieking Drake and Earthcraft lines, whatever it might be, let me know what you think of this deck. Let me see like what kind of includes you have in your own flubs builds, what other kind of off the wall stuff that our little frog scout can do. So until then, like, subscribe, comment, and as always, go play some cEDH.